Our country's on a very bad course, and the question is, what are we going to do about it? And I've decided I'm a candidate for President of the United States of America.
We need somebody that can take the brand of the United States and make it great again. I am officially running for President of the United States.
This week, two major Republican names officially entered the 2016 presidential race, Jeb Bush and Donald Trump. While both those guys are obviously big names, how might they fare against each other? Let's bring in our next guest to talk about this. Skyping in from San Francisco, Marc Rudov, branding advisor to CEOs. He's written the book, Be Unique or Be Ignored, the CEO's Guide to Branding. Marc, it's great to have you here on Newsmax Prime.
Great to be here, JD.
So Donald Trump, a CEO, he even mentioned branding during his opening statement. What are your thoughts on his announcement as opposed to that of Jeb Bush?
Well, the essence of branding is that people who hear your message must react to it, remember it, and repeat it. And at this point, can you remember what Jeb Bush said, and are you repeating it to anybody? Versus Donald Trump's message. Donald Trump came right out of the gate, not just generally talking about the problems America has, but started listing them. And he started with ISIS. Do you know that Jeb Bush never mentioned ISIS, never mentioned terrorism, never mentioned Vladimir Putin, never mentioned Obamacare, except for a small reference to the Little Sisters of the Poor. But everything was general, and he doesn't really have a lot to point to because most people can't look at Florida and say, oh, I get it, I get what he's talking about. But they can look at Trump's golf courses and buildings and recognize that this guy walks the talk. So Jeb Bush is raising money from Wall Street, which means he's beholden to Wall Street. Donald Trump is using his own money. He's beholden to nobody. He says what he thinks, and he doesn't care what anybody feels about it.
So it sounds to me, Marc, if you were taking a look at these two brands, you would put the check mark beside Mr. Trump. 30 seconds to respond.
Well, absolutely. In fact, even look at the logos they're presenting. Jeb just has his name, Jeb, with an exclamation point in the year 2016. And he's running away from his last name. Trump is using his last name, Trump, because that is his brand, and Make America Great Again. So there's a message with his name. There's no message with Jeb except for a year. So look, the United States is in a dire turnaround situation. Back in the 90s, IBM was sinking. It brought in Louis Gerstner, who came in as a slash and burn turnaround CEO. He didn't want to be liked.
And so what you're telling me is Donald Trump can take that IBM path nationally, and it could work for him in this campaign.
Well, let's put it this way. Donald Trump has the skill set. There's no question about that.
We will have to leave it there. Marc, I'm sorry, our time is short. We really appreciate it. Marc Rudov, the author of Be Unique or Be Ignored, the CEO's Guide to Branding, we thank you for your time. Now it's time to hear what's on your mind via social media. Our first comment tonight comes from Deborah, who watched our special edition of Newsmax Prime last night, airing Trump's announcement in its entirety. She writes, "Thank you, Newsmax Prime, for showing Mr. Trump's entire speech. It's been a long time since I heard a presidential candidate talk about the United States of America. The common man matters and is important. Our country is important. At times, somebody cares about the American people and the love of this country." Deborah, sounds like you're bearing out what Marc told us about the Trump brand. Our next comment comes via email from Gary. He's also thinking about 2016, saying, "I'm going to go out on the line and predict that the GOP candidate will be from either Texas or Wisconsin. P.S. I'm not a rocket scientist." Gary, we'll see if you're clairvoyant. Interesting year for the race. Again, our thanks to Marc Rudov and our thanks to you. Stay brave, stay free, stay tuned.